And so it was time to build software now. And so I started, looking at all these things, and I decided that this device operating system, we're going to go with something which will sound very familiar to you Android fans out there. And it was like a godsend, because when Google announced that, I thought at the time, if this works out, we could always think about maybe, using this in some of our designs and devices. And this was our focus for our software, was to do content aggregation and multimedia management. And you realize that it's all about the ecosystem. And at that time in Chicago, I was looking for some help doing some development work. And so I came across this guy, and Dylan Sheeman is the co-founder of Dojo, and also SitePen. If you guys are familiar with JavaScript libraries and stuff, you know who he is. And he said some really simple things. Having 3 dogs is just something he shared with me because we became really good friends. And then he told me, you should come out here. So I went out there for like a week. And I met with a couple people out here, and I said, yeah, this is pretty cool, and it's useful. And in the meantime, I still had a little bit of an obligation between leases and some other stuff, and I thought, what I should do is let's release these device demos online. And maybe we can fish around for somebody that would be interested in just taking this, right? And that's December 31st, 2006, right? And then this happens. And I say, and then I go through this whole Ron Burgundy and Al Gore post presidential election loss problem, where basically this is what it felt like, and this is sort of what I was like wandering around Chicago with this beard and drinking milk and just feeling completely out of it and figuring out, well, how do you pick up the pieces from this, right? What can you possibly do? And then all of a sudden something sort of good maybe seemed to have happened, like this demo that we had on our site, it got picked up by Dig and Reddit and Engadget and Gizmodo. But then it turned out that everyone's saying, oh, these guys just copied Apple. And they're just you guys hear about the Mizu, or the little Apple iPhone clone that came out shortly after, and everyone was slamming on it. So we got dumped in the category of all these cloners and all these people who are just copying Apple, and now everyone wants to make a touch device, and that's it. And for me, that just drove me into the Ron Burgundy moment even more, right? So then I decided, because what happens when you hit the bottom, right? You get angry and you say, well, if I really want this, I gotta fight for it and I gotta do something. So I went and banged on the door of Motorola, and I brought this along with me. And this was when I moved to Chicago. I had to buy a car, right? So I got this junked up 67 Mustang, and this is important. It's going to come back into the story. So I'm not just sharing this with you for the sake of, although I do love this car. But, so the thing is, this was all rusted out and junked out, and I figured in between coding and working and hacking and stuff, I can restore this. So I'd gotten it to this stage, and I roll into Motorola, and there's huge gates and stuff up there, and the guard just looks at me and looks at the car, and he's like, go on through. And so I roll into the corporate building, and every step of the way, everyone's just like, go right ahead. And so I go inside there and I say, I'm looking for Motorola Ventures, right? And the lady at the desk says, I don't see anything in this computer for Motorola Ventures. And are you sure? Do you know anyone in Ventures? And I was like, no, I don't know anyone there, but you have to know, it's a huge component of Motorola, right? I mean, it's the entire investment arm, I don't know how many $1 billion, right? And so she said, well, I actually after 20 minutes, she said, I finally found someone, but they're in Shanghai, China. And I said, you're kidding me. I'm in the world headquarters of Motorola, and you're telling me that the only contact for Motorola Ventures is in Shanghai, China? There's got to be a mistake. There's got to be somebody here, right? No, I was just looking through it. And then I'm asking engineers who are walking in and people walking out, and everyone's like, I've never heard of Motorola Ventures. So now I'm thinking this is really odd. It's like this black group that just hangs out and hides out in Motorola. And I tell myself, all right, fine, you know what? The next guy who walks out of this building, just ask them, and if they don't know it, forget it. It's done, right? So the next guy who walks out is wearing a suit and his briefcase. His name is Art Patton. And he's in charge of sort of their innovation and design research side. He's also a professor at Loyola in the business school. So he's like, yeah, I know Motorola Ventures really well. Who are you looking for in there? And I don't really know anyone there. I just wanted to find out more about what they do and who they invest in and, just sort of get to talk to them. And he's like, well, walk with me over, he was leaving, it was the end of the day, so he's like, I'm walking out. He's like, talk to me while we're walking. Show me what you have. So I start talking to him about this whole ecosystem, and I go, this is really valuable, I think, to Motorola, a company like Motorola. You guys can create this really easy thing that aggregates all this social data and all this important stuff on the web. And you can have a cool desktop app that makes all your handsets work really well, and you can do cool stuff with your phone book, because now you've got contacts in there that can connect with all the stuff that you're doing online. And it's all about this ecosystem. It's not just the product. And while we're talking outside, we ended up talking for 30 minutes on this curb right outside the corporate building. And the whole time we're standing there, he's just like staring off into the distance, right? And I look over and I'm like, what is he doing? And he's like staring at this. So I go, oh, I'm like, actually, you know what's interesting about that is that's what we used to do. We used to design stuff that was that beautiful and that cool, right? And 40 years later, people still stare at that and think it's really cool. I'm like, what happened when we start making really bad, crappy stuff that just doesn't live up to that, right? And he goes, you know who you need to talk to is this guy, Casey Hill. Because Casey, he collects classic Mustangs, and he's one of the executives here. He's VP at Motorola, and this guy, he built the items network, and he's done all this cool stuff. And he's got 3 of these, by the way. He's got a '68 California Special, and this is like his convertible, and then he's got another one. But so we started hanging out, and it was really cool because he was one of the few people on the Motorola crew that really got it. And I mean from the software and ecosystem perspective. And he goes, the challenge is always going to be that Motorola sees itself as a products company. They see themselves as selling hardware. It's like a widget. You got to move the volume of this to that. The operators, the mobile operators and stuff, they control what goes on the phone and how cool this is and how cool that is. You really don't have the ability to do that. But I would want to evangelize the same thing of having an ecosystem for our products. I've been talking about this. I've been trying to do this. So let's see what we can do. And they had a group called ESA, Early Seed Accelerator, or Stage Accelerator, or Seed Accelerator. But you get the idea. It was the kind of group that work with the younger startups like me, and then they can build you up either to get to Motorola Ventures or just buy you. So I was like, all right, that's pretty interesting. But Motorola was sort of, this sinking ship that was cutting all these things at the same time. So ESA gets cut, and they just shut down the whole division after, he's like, well, wait till the new year, and we'll see if we can, we'll try and, to get a deal done over there, right?